Hello, everyone. We will now be started with today's meeting. My name is Miranda Brenneman, and I'm the treasurer of Exercise is Medicine on campus and the host for today's meeting. I want to start off by thanking everyone who has joined, returning members and new members. Last week, we had the Triangle Power come in, which is composed of Dr. Cotter, Dr. Escobar, and Dr. Schick. If you happen to miss out on that meeting, it is uploaded on our YouTube page, so definitely check it out. I would like to just get started by today's announcements. Next week, we will be having our second general meeting. We will be shifting over to a new topic for the month, which is mental health. In our general meeting, we will be discussing our plans for next month, so definitely stop by. Our second announcement is our weekly challenge. We want to you guys to all share how much you've drank throughout the day, and by no means hypothermia, so just make sure you drank throughout the day and post it on your Instagram page and tag emac_Cal State ULB. So to get started with today's event, it is regarding to professions in kinesiology. That is our theme for the month, where we are looking at professions that are a little bit outside of the box. We have two amazing guest speakers today, and I would love to give a big shout out, Dr. Leilani Madrigal and Dr. Allison Eid. First, we will have the guest speakers present, and then you can either unmute yourselves or just type in your questions in the chat. Dr. Madrigal will be leaving this Zoom at 6 o'clock, but she will be leaving her socials on her presentation just in case we don't get around to your questions. She will be having that opportunity for you guys. So today we will be starting off with Dr. Madrigal, who studies sports psychology. So I would just like to pass the mic over to her. And I again want to say thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Miranda. And thank you everybody for inviting me and Dr. Eid as well to speak today and share a little bit about kind of our field in sport and exercise psychology. I am just going to go ahead and share my screen here with just a brief PowerPoint of, I kind of wanted to start by just telling you what the field is briefly, but also talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I've been a part of in terms of research and that kind of area. But I always like to start off with just kind of going over my educational journey, because we are all going to have different pathways to get to our career choices. And sometimes that's not a straight shot, and sometimes you're kind of deviating. So just to start out, I began my journey, and it's not up here, but I actually began at a junior college where I got my AA. And I wanted to do that because I play softball and basketball, and I played those two sports in high school, and I just couldn't choose which one I wanted to play. But I knew I could do both at a junior college. So I decided to do that. I focused my studies in psychology. After that, I went on to Cal State San Marcos, where I actually played on their first inaugural softball team. Because again, they had just this was one of the newer CSUs at the time. And if you don't know where San Marcos is, that's kind of going towards San Diego area. I went and got my master's and my bachelor's and master's in psychology at Cal State San Marcos. From there, I knew I wanted to work with athletes more on the mental mindset of what impacts their performance. And that's what led me to North Carolina, where I got my PhD in kinesiology, focusing on sport and exercise psychology. After that, I went on to get a postdoctoral fellowship. And this was a time where I was able to really hone in on more research and learn and grow from others that were doing research within fields similar to mine. And I worked at the University of Nebraska at the Nebraska Athletic Performance Lab. So I'll be able to kind of share some of the research that was done there in a couple slides. But I also like to just throw out what the mascots were, so you can kind of see who was being supported athletically, right? So just to kind of go briefly into, what is sport and exercise psychology? We're really looking at, what are the psychological factors that are impacting one's performance, whether that's in sport or for performance more like exercise and physical activity. So in psychological factors are things like your emotions, the thoughts in your head, the behaviors. How is that impacting how either well you perform or how you're not performing? So we're really looking more at what's going on, inside. So to understand someone's thought process, the way that we do a lot of our research is survey-based or interviews, because that's how we need to know, what are these people thinking and what are they feeling, because that's going to tell us what's, impacting performance to a degree. I do want to distinguish a little bit just at this point, the difference between sports psychology and exercise psychology. When we're talking about sports psychology, it's really emphasized on the psychological aspects that are around competitive sport participation. So again, things that have a set of guidelines in place, there's competitive standards, you're competing athletically. When we compare that to exercise psychology, that's really focusing on psychological impacts of fitness, exercise, health, and wellness. And I just wanted to kind of put this slide up here, and I know Dr. Eid is really going to get into the exercise psychology and really explain that more in depth, right? So again, just a picture so you guys can get a sense of what, or you all can get a sense of what sport and exercise psychology is, especially before I start talking about some of the research, so you can understand. So with the research that was done at the Nebraska Athletic Performance Lab, this is a picture of the lab. And you can see it was really meant to look at athletes holistically. So when we look at kinesiology, things are broken down into different option areas. So we have exercise science, we have, even within that, there's biomechanics lens, there's an exercise physiology lens. And sometimes people are looking at performance only through that one lens, right? But there's more to a person's performance than their muscle activation when they perform. There's more to it than just the thought processes that go through. So the purpose of this lab was to look holistically at athletes. So can we look at the biomechanics, how they're moving, how they're thinking and feeling, the psychology aspects, even looking at things like their physiology. So what are like their stress levels like if we looked at cortisol levels or other, physiological markers that we might want to look at. And just to kind of show you the lab a little bit, just so we can see here. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse or not, but if you can see the camera systems, right? Those are what we would look at in biomechanical research, where we can put markers on individuals to look at body posture and look at motion and movement. Those cameras were portable, so we could move those to the turf area if we wanted to look at track and field runners and how they approached a hurdle or their start and takeoff positions. If you look on the hardwood floor, you can kind of see these like squares. Those are embedded force plates, right? So we can real time look at how people are maybe rebounding and how are their landing mechanics. Or if we wanted to set up the volleyball net, we can look at people and how they're, blocking or doing other movements, right? The idea was to make it real life, as close to their athletic performance as possible. Because we know when we go in the lab, it's hard to kind of say, well, that's the environment that those people are actually doing those performances in. So again, I just kind of wanted to show you the setup. The University of Nebraska obviously has a lot of money that can be put into this lab to make it look this nice and to have all the different equipment in that space. Some of the studies that I was a part of, I just wanted to show you a little bit of this. This is an example of one of the studies that we did, and this was looking at self-efficacy and shooting performance. And again, self-efficacy, for those that don't know, just to give you like the really brief version, is one's confidence in their ability to do a specific task. So it's self-efficacy in X. And in this example, it was in shooting performance. So you're looking at rifle athletes, and you can see that we were looking at a couple different things. So my biomechanical colleagues wanted to look at body posture and rifle stability. So how well are they able to kind of hold their equipment, and where is their balance being put before they do this task of shooting at their target? In addition, for the sports psychology aspect, I was interested in what are their anxiety and confidence states prior to doing that skill? Are they feeling nervous? Is the impact that we're in this like new lab and people are watching them, is that impacting how they're performing? Or are they able to kind of tune that out? This is just really an interesting study for me, just because I never worked with rifle athletes before, so I didn't know what the stressors that they go through. But if you look at this suit, it's very stiff material, right? And that's intentional because we don't want a lot of flexibility. It has to be sturdy, so there's not a lot of sway and movement as they're lining up their rifle to take a shot. The SCAT system is actually a system that looks at eye tracking, and it tracks the rifle position. So the green line is actually looking at their rifle as they're getting it placed to the target. So you can see that they've like kind of circled around a lot of different spaces before they actually pull the trigger to shoot at the target. And I can't zoom in right now, but if you see it, you can see they were actually right here at the bullseye, but then they shifted down and they moved at the last minute before their shot. Again, the SCAT system is really just nice because it gives you how long it took to take that shot, and it gives you a score, right? And so we were looking at, well, what are going to be predictors of a successful shot? Is it their body posture and where their weight is distributed? Is it their confidence and anxiety, or is it something else? And we actually found that it was actually their previous performance was the strongest predictor of how well they were going to do on that next shot. And that's actually one of the sources of self-efficacy when we look at Bandura's theory that says, what are like the source of like what impacts how well somebody feels and their ability to do something? It's how successful have they been previously in doing that? So it was a way for us to really look at, sports psychology and biomechanics as we're looking at, performance in rifle athletes. Another example of a study that was done where we, again, paired disciplines together was our focus of attention study. And again, this was looking at how performance shifts when we change the way that we give instructions to someone. So 3 standard assessments of strength are the 10-yard sprint, the shuttle run, and the vertical jump. And some of you may have been involved in research where you've done these tasks or maybe performed them yourselves. These are tasks that our football athletes would do preseason, midseason, postseason. They would do these a lot to make sure that the training that they're doing in the strength and conditioning room was transferring to these other skills that were measures of strength. What we were interested in is what the coaches are instructing to their athletes, is that impacting how well they perform, right? So the way that the coaches instruct could be having a role in that, whether it's having them have an attention of what their body is doing. So internal focus. The next time I want you to push really hard, I want you to push off your right foot and really drive into the ground. Versus if I'm saying, I want you to look at that target down the road, I want you to sprint until you've hit that target that you see down the road, right? If I'm looking at something external, that might change where my focus is versus if I'm looking and feeling something more internal. And I won't tell you like results here yet. I just kind of wanted to tell you the methodology and some of the ways here, but through this, we were able to put, again, markers on them to look at the kinematic data. For some of these tasks, they were standing on force plates, so we can look at the kinetic data and then the EMG data. So they put, again, muscle activation, like sensors on different muscle groups to kind of see, how is the instruction impacting these different data sources, right? For the sports psychology component, it was the intervention of the different modes of instruction, but it was also asking them at the end of each task, what were your thoughts? What were you focusing on? Because even though we can say this is the internal group and we told them to push off their foot, but in reality, they were looking at the marker that they needed to get to. They're like confounding, right? The group that we really wanted them to be a part of. So we had to kind of verify that and ask them these open-ended questions. What were you thinking about? So that's just a couple of the examples of studies I've done at Nebraska. Here at Cal State Long Beach, I've looked more internally at mental toughness is really my area of research. And so one of the main things I want to know is like, how are coaches developing mental toughness on their teams? And are there ways that maybe we can help educate coaches to be better at maybe the strategies they think they're doing to gain mental toughness? Is that working? Do the athletes, are they receptive to it too? And I've done a couple studies where we've seen some incongruence, where we've seen coaches are saying, I'm doing this and that's building mental toughness. And athletes are saying, that's hurting me. I don't like that. That's actually making me not want to be a part of this team. So it's kind of like, how do we find that common ground so we're improving the well-being of our athletes while making them mentally tough in a healthy manner, right? Mental toughness is not pushing through injury and saying how hard can you keep going when your body is really telling you to stop. Which leads into my other area of research, which looks at the psychological responses to sport injury. So what are some factors psychologically that could be impacting how someone's recovering from their injury, right? Are they motivated to come back and do their rehab, or is it nice to have this break right now because there was so much external pressure on them from coaches and other people that, it was really impacting how they viewed their sport. Within this area, it's also looking at what are factors that are putting someone at risk of injury. And it's not your muscle strength. I'm not looking at the environmental factors. I'm looking at what are the psychological factors. So are we so stressed out prior to coming to practice that I wasn't thinking right? And that's how I slipped and tripped because I couldn't even pay attention to what was in front of me because I was thinking about the test I had or the fight that I just had with my roommate before I got here. So those are some of the examples of the psychological stress that could impact someone's ability to focus or perform well which can lead to injury at times. And then lastly, just some research, again, is still trying to collaborate with others to do more of that interdisciplinary lens of, again, looking more holistically at what's impacting performance or what's impacting the individual and well-being. So that's just kind of like a background of the sporting, this research that I've done. I wanted to just kind of highlight some of the careers that some of our students or those that in the field of sport and exercise psychology tend to go and do. One of the first pathways is to become a university professor or a lecturer. And again, this kind of gives you a lot of flexibility if you do like to teach, if you have like an interest in research, and to a degree, if you do like to work with athletes on maybe some of the mental skills that impact them. Again, with the 4-year, if you do want to become a teacher, professor, it does require a PhD at the 4-year institution. If you wanted to work at a junior college, again, that would just be a master's level. That would be kind of required. Another job that people in our field get into is the mental performance consultant. So this is really focusing on mental performance, teaching mental performance skills to athletes or individuals. So that's like, how do we build confidence? How do we goal set? How do we be an effective team? What are ways that, I can work on to self-regulate my emotions? This can be a job where you're hired by an athletic organization, or for some people, they develop their own practice and kind of build their own clientele. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the criteria you need to become a mental performance consultant in a couple slides. Other people go into the armed force kind of category, where they're still kind of teaching mental skills to the armed force cadets, individuals, but it's really more focused on how can we train resilience, how can we train self-regulation when I'm starting to get really anxious because now I'm going through either a rigorous training or I'm scared because I'm about to be deployed and I'm really trying to battle with just the attentional factors that are impacting my performance in that realm. For this one, again, higher education, master's degree is needed, and some training in mental skills knowledge. Exercise psychology is another realm. And in this one, you're still working on mental skills training, but it's focused on to the exercisers or to the people that are working in maybe fitness facilities. So that might be doing psychoeducational workshops for personal trainers or trying to teach individuals how to better communicate with their clients or physicians or physical therapists. Again, I'm not going to get too deep into this because I'm going to let Dr. E really tell us more about the exercise psychology role, but I just wanted to acknowledge this is another career path from people within our discipline. The last career path we see people go is to go on and get their PhD or PsyD in counseling or clinical psychology. And this really allows individuals to not work only with athletes on mental skills training, but beyond that. So now with this training, I can work with mental health and variety of populations. And there are some athletic, departments that require you to have a PhD in counseling or be a licensed therapist to work with their athletes. Again, because they want maybe individuals that can go beyond the mental skills, but more of the clinical kind of realm of things. So those are the 5 different kind of pathways that we'll see people go career-wise. I wanted to share one of the organizations. Our national organization is the Association for Applied Sports Psychology. This conference, we meet as a national conference every fall in October. And it's really focused on more of the applied research and the applied practice. So some of the presentations you might see at conferences might be things like different interventions that were done with different populations, or looking at how we can embed diversity and social justice into sport. And that's another area that's starting to gain more recognition, but it's still an area that needs to be thought of more in the field. This is also the governing body that kind of gives out these certifications to become a certified mental performance consultant. So again, I said that was like our second career path that some people take. To have this certification, you're taking required courses, you're getting supervised hours in which you're working with athletes or clients to, teach mental skills, and then you're sitting for an exam. And so we see people, go this route again to be CMPCs is the actual name for the field. But I just kind of, wanted to talk about this is a growing field with diverse opportunities, and it's not a clear-cut path. So there's not going to be like a clear you follow this, you get this major, and then you go this route, people are going to make their careers what they want. Some people are going to gravitate towards the teaching and they really like that. Other people are like, I don't like standing in front of people and talking to people. I like maybe just working one-on-one practitioner mode, or maybe I just like the research angle. So people really can take one of those three options, is really teaching, research, practitioner, and kind of make it the way that they want to make it. And here at CSULB, we do try and provide as many opportunities for students as possible. In our graduate programs, we either, try to provide teaching assistantships where students can get that experience of teaching. We have the applied opportunities where they can get experience consulting. And then we have a lot of research opportunities where students can get involved in the different types of research that we do. I do want to give a shout out. We do have I'm very impressed by this club at the organization. I love the backgrounds. Like our students started a club last year, and they can learn a lot from everybody here. So I'm definitely going to be asking for them to come and join other meetings with you all. But I also wanted to say, this might be an opportunity for the two clubs to maybe collaborate and do maybe, even a workshop together on how we can use exercise and sports psychology to help facilitate growth and well-being, especially as you all are getting into your mental health component in the next month. But again, just a little information about the organization, and their handle for Instagram is at SCP Beach Club. A couple more social media outlets here for our own sport and exercise psychology program. You can find us on Facebook if you're still using Facebook. And we also have Instagram for our program. It's at LBSU Sports Psychology. These are really long names, and all the short names were taken when we figured out the whole social media game. So just leaving you with, again, my email address if there's any questions or follow-up. But again, thank you for this opportunity. And I'll go ahead and take this time to pass it on to Dr. Eid, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thanks, Dr. Madrigal. So is your preferred format to wait till the end for questions, or do you want to take any time for questions in between? Wait till the end?
Yeah, we were just going to wait till the end. That way we could both ask you guys individually. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, well, I am going to share my screen too, because I've got a few slides. Okay. All right, so Dr. Madrigal and I actually came in together the same year. So I thought it was very appropriate that you asked both of us, because we often talk about our programs together. And so I think it's just a great fit that we're able to speak to you all as well. So like Dr. Madrigal, I wanted to start off telling you a little bit more about me. I took kind of a different path in that originally I had no background in kinesiology or psychology or exercise science, none of it. My undergrad degree is actually in women's and gender studies. I went to a small school in Minnesota, even though I grew up here. So I'm from Southern California originally. But I was also a track athlete, and what I wanted to do was coach, but because I went to a small school, that wasn't even an option for a degree. We didn't have a program. There were no courses. There was no background. And I wish I had had that before I started coaching, because it would have helped so much. So I moved to Colorado after I graduated. I was a track and field coach for 4 years. So I took some time off in between my undergrad and my grad degree. And I loved coaching. But that's when I became sort of more interested in sports psychology specifically. So as a coach, I saw a lot of things with my athletes that were very sports psych specific. I was primarily a coach for sprinters, relays, hurdlers, and high jumpers. And so in particular, high jump, if anybody was a high jumper, is a really interesting sort of discipline because it always ends in failure. You go until you miss. And so being able to recover from that and then compete well when it's sort of a part of the competition is to always end on something bad, when we want people to end on something positive. But also, especially at the high school level, being around and coaching female athletes, I got really interested in eating disorder prevention because I saw it everywhere. And, growing up in California, I think it's very prevalent in California too, but just in general in the running community, we're talking about it more now and we're seeing more come out. So when I first started thinking about going back to grad school, I really wanted to focus on eating disorder prevention. And so when I was choosing where to go, I chose North Texas, even though I've never been to Texas, because there was an advisor there, Dr. Christy Greenleaf, who focused on body image and eating disorders. And so I wanted to go work with her. And see what I could do and maybe go back to coaching later. I wasn't sure what I wanted to go do after the master's degree. But when I got to the master's degree, and I'll talk about this later with some of the research path that I took, I really fell in love with teaching and research and decided I wanted to be a professor. And so I ended up doing my doctoral degree at Michigan State. So my doctoral degree is technically in psychosocial aspects of sport and physical activity, which is a very complicated name that nobody knows what it means when I tell them what my PhD is in. And I finished in 2016, was hired here in 2016. So I've been here ever since. So came back home, which was also really nice. And really enjoy working in this department because it's a lot of fun with a lot of great people. So as Dr. Madrigal shared as well, so really when we think about sport psychology, our grad program is called Sport and Exercise Psychology because we combine the two. In the faculty that we have here, we have Dr. Madrigal, we also have Dr. Fogassa, who is focused in sports psychology. So I'm sort of the odd one out because I focus in exercise psychology. I think of exercise psychology really as a subdiscipline of sports psychology. Often it gets sort of missed. I feel like the sport is sort of the flashy one, like let's work with elite athletes and NFL players, and the exercise side. I think people come in wanting to do sport and then they realize, oh, there's a lot of fun things in exercise psychology too. So I often say that I sort of bring students over to sort of my area once they take an exercise psych class or get more involved. So it's really a combination of both psychology and exercise science. So in some ways, I feel like I'm more similar to the exercise science group, depending on what I'm doing. My background when I was at Michigan State, I also took a lot of coursework in exercise science and exercise physiology. Most of the time in psychology, we don't do anything like VO2 max testing or things like that. But in the kind of research projects I was doing, we were doing all of that. So it was very hands-on. Spent a lot of time with other students in the exercise science program and learned a lot about how to take those different perspectives. So exercise psychology really has two main purposes. Similar to what Dr. Madrigal talked about, the first one is what are the psychosocial factors that influence exercise behaviors? Most of the time we're focusing on how do we get people to be active? Because that's really the biggest issue at sort of a community level is how do we help people just be and stay active and prevent dropout? And then sort of on a secondary level is then how do we improve those exercise behaviors? Once people are active, how do we help them get the outcomes that they want? So is it improving, increasing intensity, improving efforts, and things like that? And so then the other side is what are those mental health outcomes? So focusing a lot on mental health and emotional well-being. How do we use exercise to reduce depression? How do we reduce stress and anxiety through exercise specifically? We don't really have the kind of performance outcomes that sports psych does. We're not focused on necessarily improving competitive performance. We're looking at healthy sort of environments for people in exercise. So for me, I carried over some of the body image and eating disorder aspects. I eventually kind of moved away from it, but also thinking about, body image in sport was something I was interested in, but body image in exercise is even bigger. Because so many people exercise for appearance related reasons. It's a big part of the fitness industry, and how can we make that healthier? What can we do to help sort of the whole field? So exercise psychology also covers fields like rehab settings, behavioral medicine, public health really is an exercise psychology field. So there's a lot of different areas. In some ways, it's a little less clear cut. I think a lot of times we don't use the term exercise psychology, even though it is what we're talking about. So that's kind of a brief overview of that. So my route, like I said, I sort of shifted. So initially I came in wanting to do sport specifically, but then when I got to North Texas, and I was working with Christy Greenleaf, she was my master's advisor, actually sent one of our grad students she's now at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So one of our graduates from a couple of years ago is now a PhD student under her, and she's about to graduate, which is kind of fun to see full circle. But when I got to North Texas, that's when I started learning that exercise psychology was a field. I didn't even know it existed before that. And I was introduced to it by another faculty member whose focus was more on disability and rehab. So North Texas is just outside of Dallas. It's in Denton, Texas, but it's affiliated with the Baylor Rehab Center. So Baylor's in more southern Texas, but their rehab center is in Dallas. And so that is an acute rehab facility for people who've had traumatic brain injuries or spinal cord injuries. So it's like a residential facility. People are there throughout the beginnings of their recovery. And so a lot of the research that was going on at North Texas at the time was also on how do we use physical activity to improve mental health outcomes. So not just physical health outcomes, but mental health outcomes, because people who've gone through a traumatic injury like this are at risk of isolation and depression much more than the general population. And so seeing the impact of that, like, it really influenced what I wanted to do because it felt so important and so needed. What was also going on at the time that I started learning more about other areas of kinesiology was the program got a grant to examine the reliability and validity of youth fitness testing, because Texas had just passed a mandate that the fitnessgram be used in all public schools. And they were realizing that teachers weren't trained in it, and it was actually going pretty poorly. And so I spent a year doing youth fitness testing, elementary through high school, in Dallas public schools. So if anyone's done the fitnessgram, and like they have the music with the pacer test, I had to hear that song like 5 or 6 times a day for an entire year. I think I still have dreams about that sometimes. So I learned a lot about fitness testing. We were affiliated there with the Cooper Institute in Dallas, Kenneth Cooper, father of aerobics. So got to learn a lot too. He is kind of a sort of a celebrity in Texas, which is I've got some stories if anybody ever wants to hear some of them. And so then when I went to Michigan State, I went to work with a lab that had been focused on self-efficacy in sport, but had transitioned to exercise psychology. So their lab was sort of transitioning at the time to studying group dynamics and social relationships. How do we use group dynamic principles in order to help people exercise better? And so there, I was the project manager for a study with NASA that we did. We got a grant to essentially pilot a program using virtually generated, sort of software generated partners. The idea is that NASA wanted to go to Mars, and you can only bring one piece of equipment on the space shuttle to go to Mars. And because it was so many years, fear was astronauts doing the same exercise for every day for years was going to get extremely boring and they wouldn't do it. So we collaborated with the XPS lab at MSU, and we actually did this 2-year sort of longitudinal experiment. We didn't have actual astronauts because actual astronauts don't live in Michigan, but we spent some time at the Space Center in Houston. So the first part, we did get to do like focus group interviews with astronauts to find out like, what was your experience exercising in space? Because I don't know. I don't know if you're actually bored or not. Like, how bored do you get in space? I don't know. What is it that you want? What is it that you miss? How do we, part of my job as the psych person was to think about the communication between the partner, because we wanted the partner not just to be like on the screen, but also to communicate with the person and to foster some kind of relationship, except not too far, because that might get weird if you're in space for so long. So finding out from astronauts what they would want and that kind of thing. And then we looked at a lot of physiological outcomes. We looked at changes in VO2 max over time, quad strength, because muscular strength is something that people lose in space, obviously, and things like that. So did a lot of the fitness testing along with sort of the psychological outcomes. We were looking at social connectedness. Were people actually feeling connected to this partner? Because we also have something that's called uncanny valley, where if a virtual partner is kind of in between realistic, it's like you can either be really realistic or really non-realistic, but when you're kind of in between, it's really freakish. And so people like it if you're on one side or the other, but if you end up in the middle, people get really like turned off by that person. So we spent a lot of time doing that. So that was a really intensive project. And then here at MSU or at CSULB, a lot of what I do, especially in the beginning, was more community-based. And I think that's one of the things I like about exercise psychology is a lot of the times we're going out just in communities. And so when I was at UNT, going out to the schools was really rewarding, spending time with students. And while fitness testing was not something that most of them were super excited about, although the elementary school kids loved it, like 5th graders doing fitness testing. They love it. And then you get the juniors in high school and they hate you for everything. That was a lot of fun. And so my first 2 years here, I worked with some faculty in nutrition and others in our physical education, teacher education program. And we did a program with middle school girls. So once a week, we went to a middle school and we had a program where we were looking at how do we, no, it's not the Fit Girls Club. This was different. It was the Female Leadership Academy, and we put it within that. And we had sort of graduate students and undergraduate students who served as mentors for these girls. And they really focused on like body positivity programming, along with physical activity and nutrition. So we sort of alternated a nutrition lesson with a physical activity. And then every week though, we embedded like body appreciation in there too, because middle school girls are really at risk. Right now, what I'm doing is I collaborate a lot with the Life Fit Center. So I work with Ayla Donlin a lot, and we're working with Dr. Jackie Dawson in the physical therapy program. And for the last year, we've been doing an mHealth study where we have 3 groups. We have people doing virtual fitness classes synchronously together, virtual fitness classes asynchronously, so on their own time, or a control group. And the part that I'm looking at is the social connectedness, how people are connected, especially during COVID. You know, how can we use these virtual spaces to keep connected? And then we're also looking at, you know, adherence and physical health outcomes too. And so we're trying to bring that to a bigger study, which can hopefully be a little more in person at some point, but it was something that we were able to do during COVID. And so I know Dr. Madrigal touched on this a little bit. And I think exercise psychology is always an interesting one because people often don't know what a sports psychologist is. They can kind of figure it out from the term. But there's really no such thing as an exercise psychologist. We don't have licensed psychologists who do exercise, except I think we should. I think that would be really great if we could get there as a field, like really focusing on, you know, practitioners who use exercise as a way to improve mental health, like just for its own sake would be great. So generally, if you're interested in exercise psychology and you're interested in community-based work, so public health and health promotion, focusing on developing interventions, physical activity programming, so not necessarily the fitness programming side, but more like how do we get people to be active? What can we do? Is it educational? Is it media? Is it like, you know, networking? Is it getting people together? Things like that. So that is a role that people will go on to do. And like Dr. Madrigal said, a researcher or faculty member. And I think in sports psychology specifically, most of the degrees are in sports psychology. People don't typically get like a PhD in exercise psychology. But what a lot of people will do is get a PhD in sports psychology, but do all their research in exercise. And a lot of those areas are expanding. So we see a lot more possibilities for grant funding because they, you know, I don't want to say it's easy to sort of justify why physical activity is important, but I think people do recognize that physical activity is important. And on the other side, sometimes it can be hard to justify to people why sport is important, even though I absolutely believe that sport is important. I think that sometimes grant funding agencies don't really see it as something that is really beneficial for the general population, even though I would argue with that. We also have areas in behavioral health. So in rehab settings or other clinical medical settings, but the focus is on adherence. How do we help people adhere to these programs? How do we try to create these exercise environments to promote mental health? People go into workplace wellness. So how do we do group programming? Really looking at sort of those social relationships, which is an area that I'm really interested in too. Social relationships in sort of like these closed settings in workplaces. And also in the fitness industry, more things more like wellness coaching, along with personal training, but wellness coaching I think is one that is growing that has a lot of ties to exercise psychology. There's a lot of overlap there. Like if you're ever take a class with Dr. Kelly Walters, she's somebody that I collaborate with a lot on a lot of these things too. So how to sort of prepare for these jobs, you know, undergraduate degrees in kinesiology or psychology. And like I said, most of the programs are sports psychology, but they include some components. Our program is something that we're trying to transition to. I feel very lucky that I'm in a group that's very supportive of exercise psychology as sort of its own, you know, necessary components. I feel like some programs don't see that. Like you have sports psych people doing exercise psychology things, but What we're also trying to do in the coming years is we are changing our degree. So right now we have an option in sports psychology, we have an option in coaching, and we're going to be having also an option in exercise psychology, hopefully, as long as it clears within the next 2 years, where we'll actually be a master's in sport, exercise, and performance psychology with options in either sports psychology, coaching, or exercise psychology. And so our students are going to be in that degree will be a little more research focused. A lot of our students in our sports psychology program want to be CMPC certified, like Dr. Madrigal talked about, but CMPC certification isn't really relevant to exercise. So that's not something that's necessary for somebody who wants to go into exercise psychology. In doctoral degrees, a lot of the focus now is on cognitive function. So we have the mental health side, but how can exercise be used to improve cognitive function, especially with older adults, to improve quality of life? So there's a lot going on there right now in doctoral programs, where I think if that's an interest of yours, there's places for that right now. And sometimes what we see is that students will complete one of their degrees in sports psych and one of their degrees in exercise science, whether it's a master's or a PhD, or they reverse it. So they have a foundations in both, and like more specialized training in both, and they can do that combination. Another certification that I would recommend for people interested in exercise psychology is the ACSM Physical Activity and Public Health Specialist certification, because that is more geared towards the public health side and the community-based side too. So I want to make sure, yeah, we have time for questions. So thanks for giving us the time. I have my contact information up here. Dr. Madrigal gave you all the socials. Mine are the same, so I'm not going to repeat those as well.
So if you guys feel free to either leave a comment in the chat or feel free to unmute yourselves. I will start off with the first question, and then whenever you guys are ready to chip in, you guys can. So the first question for today will be, since the name of our club is Exercise is Medicine, how important is exercise and sport in your daily lives, and which ways has it helped you?
You want me to go first, Dr. Madrigal? Yeah, so for me, I realized it a lot more during COVID, as I think a lot of people did. That one of the things that I do now that I'm older, I don't really participate in sport anymore, but I really like outdoor exercise. So I spend a lot of time hiking, running when I can, although I cannot run the way that I used to. So sometimes I'm not as happy with that. But what I was realizing during COVID is I really needed to carve out that time, because if there was something with my schedule and I wasn't able to hike that week, like it really put me in a worse place. So I really realized, I think, how much it affected my mental health, and how just being outside and exercising in nature is something that I really have to do. And I have to schedule that time in the same way that I would anything else to make sure it's there for my mental health. So it's been a big part of being able to handle this past year.
I would say similarly with me, trying to find that balance and trying to find time to get that, exercise embedded within me was something that I was able to do due to COVID. But prior to that, my athletic identity was something. I told you I played softball and basketball in high school and junior college. I coached it. And then when I got this job after, so many years of not playing sport anymore, I just kind of missed that competitiveness. I missed playing something that was a team-based kind of entity. So I actually joined roller derby for about 4 years. It was a new sport, so everything was new to me. And so it was hard because I wasn't good at it. Softball, I'm like, I can hit the ball and I can field the ball. I feel confident in my abilities, but I couldn't even stand on my feet because I'm on skates and people are coming in trying to hit me. But I like the challenge of trying to learn the new skills. And it also kind of forced me to be able to be physically active for so many nights out of the week to do our practices. I ended up stopping doing that once COVID hit, and now I'm picking up slow pitch softball, and I'm right back at that athletic identity that makes me feel happy. But like Dr. Ead's saying, it's about making that time, and if it's a passion, you make it a priority. It's not like I just don't have time for this. It's trying to make that fit in. So thank you.
I'll actually go ahead second. And I think actually, Dr. Ead, you kind of maybe answered this a little bit when you were speaking. But you mentioned how one of your goals is how do we go about getting people to be active. Dr. Madrigal, you talked about, you're looking to mental toughness, and maybe the way you advise someone to do something kind of turns off the way they approach now wanting to be active in their sport or whatnot. Do you think that maybe overall, as a society in the big picture, we have an issue in the way that we advise or market physical activity? And it can be really intimidating sometimes, some of the way these, bigger companies go about it. And what do you think is like the solution? How do you navigate things like that?
Dr. Madrigal, do you want to try this one first?
I know you're gonna have like such really good commentary on this one, but from my perspective, and then this is just even, through different gyms that I was researching during COVID that had outdoor space, it's really interesting to see kind of what are the hooks that they're using to try and get people in, right? And one in particular was advertising, lose X amount of weight in so much time. And it was very much about, take these supplements and you can lose an amount of weight that is not healthy to do in the short duration of time, but that was the focus and the push. And I mean, just seeing how much it was, even stepping inside the gym to kind of see like, what's the interaction like? A lot of stuff I don't agree with. And a lot of like the motivational factors that they're using to push is all about, ego and more about how can you be better than the person next to you. And just a lot of thoughts about this, but Dr. Ead's going to have some good stuff here.
It's such a complicated one. I mean, I spend most of my exercise psych class talking about different components of this. So when I tell people what I do, that I study exercise psychology, the first question they ask me is, how do I be better at exercise? Like that's always the first question I get. And it's like, I can't answer that for you. The biggest thing though, in general, is something we don't talk about as much is finding things that people enjoy. Like there's no perfect exercise. There's one thing that's going to cure everything for somebody. But if you find something that you love, that's going to keep you going. And the more that there are those other standards, it's like we need to lift and we need to look like this and we need to do all these things. If somebody doesn't enjoy it, they're always going to stop it. So sometimes, the other thing is in navigating like the really heavy appearance and weight loss focus that is always marketed. And in my classes, I try to talk about like, we can't ignore that it's happening. We can't pretend that it's not. And I think that's something that we have to talk about is, all right, we have to acknowledge that this is there, but let's talk about how we can also then maybe foster other parts of it. Like, all right, somebody's here and they're starting because they want to look better. But what can we do to help them feel more satisfaction? Like feeling like, okay, I'm more capable, I'm building up my strength, and that makes me feel good just doing that. The other side of that I also see a lot is that people often feel like exercise is a punishment. Like, in kinesiology here, in my classes too, people don't always understand that, because I feel like in general, if we're here, we're people who like to be active, we like it. We like that feeling of, overcoming, like, I'm tired, I'm going to keep going, that kind of thing. But the general population doesn't. So how can we not necessarily embrace that, but teach people and help people? One, you don't have to go till you're dying. That's not necessarily like the only thing that's valuable. And I think sometimes that's the message that comes out of, if you're not going all in, then don't do anything. But then even doing small things that aren't overwhelming are still healthy and valuable. And it's better to do 5 minutes than it is to do nothing because you feel like you have to go an hour. So, really making things sort of incremental too, I think could be something that's better for our messaging. But yeah, there's so many, there's no one answer to that at all.
I have a question, kind of going off of what Dr. E just said. You said something about making physical activity like a punishment. Do you think this like stems from an early age? I know you said you worked with kids. Did you find anything for when you were doing that about how they felt about physical activity?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because my background being track and running being treated as a punishment for so many other things, like really takes the enjoyment out of something like running for people. Like if they're in sports and coaches use physical activities as punishment, whether it's push-ups, whether it's running, then that does get embedded of like, oh, I'm not supposed to like this. And I think that even starts in PE classes sometimes. like a lot of the PE classes become really sport focused and not like, how do you enjoy physical activity? Like that's something I think that we could do a lot better with kids is like, you know, it's not about competition, and it can be like, there can be that part to it, but you know, I think some of it comes with, there are just feelings of punishment, like, you know, feeling tired, feeling soreness is like a feeling of people don't like it. So it feels kind of like a punishment, even though like nobody's punishing them, it still has that kind of same effect of like, well, this kind of sucks, so I don't want to do it. But yeah, I think the main thing I would say is we stop using physical activity as punishment for anything, sport or any other area.
And then there's a question in the chat by Cassandra. It says, when discussing the self-efficacy of archers, it was stated that previous outcomes were the most important factor, but how would one challenge their mindset psychology if they haven't been successful in the past? Positive self-thought.
Yeah, definitely. And that is definitely one of the ways that we can increase that confidence in my ability to do this when maybe that's not feeling as great. That could be maybe I'm saying positive, like, that was okay, I got this next shot, or I'm feeling fine. Or if my coach is saying something positive for me. So like positive statements can definitely increase someone's self-efficacy. The vicarious experience. So watching somebody else do something makes you feel a little bit more confident that you can do that same task. I don't know if that's ever happened to anybody, if like you were afraid to maybe give a speech or do a presentation, but then you saw a peer go up and do it and you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. So you're more confident, more willing to go do that. Another one is just even just like reframing those like butterflies in my sweaty palms. Is that because I'm nervous, or is that like, no, my body is ready, I'm good to go. I'm gonna like reframe these arousal signals as my body is ready to go kind of thing. Those are some of the ways that we can like kind of change that up and try to build that self-efficacy for specific tasks. But I'm not sure Dr. Eid's a self-efficacy expert due to like some of the PhD people that she was under getting her training. So I didn't know if you had any additional thoughts.
Yeah, I see a question here too. How can one change their mindset if they haven't been successful in the past? And so I think it's not necessarily just changing the mindset, but then how can we create other environments where they can be like, start becoming more successful? So like in an exercise, you know, because one of the things is people jump in, like one of the reasons people drop out is because they go all in and they try things that are too hard. So like really transitioning people like, okay, it's okay to start doing something easy, builds up their self-efficacy so that becomes a past performance. It's not just that they are getting better because you're progressing in training, but also I have had some success now, but often that has to be fostered by somebody else. It's hard for us to do that. It's hard for us to acknowledge that and see it. So that's when I think, you know, fitness professionals are really helpful because they can show that that's happening.
I'll go ahead and ask another question for Dr. Madrigal before you head out. Since you work with elite athletes, obviously you're measuring not only the psychological part of it, but you're looking at biomechanical factors as well. What percent would you say that that mental state that they get in, whether it's before a game, during a game, practices and stuff like that, plays into performance compared to like their actual muscle strength, muscle endurance, and those kinds of things?
And I'm biased, right? Because I'm coming from the mindset of like, your thoughts are going to really impact how you're feeling, or your emotions are going to impact what you're thinking about and what you're going to end up doing. But I think, you know, things like relate, and there's like this intersectionality between like, if I'm feeling tense about something, I'm going to like tense my muscles up. I don't know the last time you all were driving and like there's traffic. And sometimes when we're driving in traffic and we're not even aware of it, by the time we get to where we're going, we're like, why is my muscle so sore? Why am I so tight on my arms? It's because we were driving and tensing our muscles like for the past hour and a half, right? And so sometimes this happens like without us even thinking about it. Unconsciously, we're tensing muscles and we're changing how our body is moving. That's actually one of the ways why we might get injured, is because of the muscle tension is not letting our body do movements like naturally. So then we do something, we tweak, and now we're like, you know, more susceptible of getting hurt. So I definitely think there's that relationship there of trying to, you know, one, make sure that you're relaxed before you're doing it, and, you know, doing high stressful performances. That's why, you know, some of the techniques we use for mental skills training is like progressive muscle relaxation. So actively tensing muscles, so it forces that release. Because when I actively tense my shoulders, I'm releasing muscles that are like that kinetic chain is happening, right? So I tense these muscles, but I'm feeling it in my forearm, the relaxation. So it kind of forces this body scan that we want. So I definitely think things relate, but we do have to like be mindful of things. And sometimes it's not the awareness that we're acknowledging. So sometimes with athletes, I'm just teaching them to be more aware of what their body's doing when they're starting to feel like those anxious feelings, or I'm starting to get nervous. So now what can I do to start calming my body down? Because I know internally things are starting to happen that are going to affect the signals going through my body. So if it's, I need to take some deep breaths, because that's going to slow my heart rate, which is going to slow some of the blood flow that's going to different body, muscles and groupings, then we might, teach those mental skills.
And I want to thank you, Madrigal. I want to have you go over at 6 o'clock. So I want to thank you very much. So have a wonderful day.
Thank you all. And again, if anybody has questions, feel free to email me, and I'll definitely reach out, and we can always like do a one-on-one conversation as well. So thank you all.
Thank you.
I did want to read something from the chat really quick. When Dr. Ebe, you were talking about the running as a punishment, Andres had mentioned that I ran track in cross country and track in high school, and people would joke that we would run for fun because they just saw it as a punishment. And I kind of got thrown back to like high school, where like if you didn't dress out that day or something, you have to go run a few laps and things like that. And you're like, it's at this age that you get a little older and you're like, oh, that's interesting to look back onto.
Yeah, I think there's so much more we can do at young ages to sort of view physical activity as sort of a lifelong enjoyment. Like it's not something you have to do. We don't always have to put all these extra goals on it. It could just the enjoyment part. Like let's help teach kids, like because kids like to play, they like to be active, and that goes away at some point. Like it just sort of ends. So sort of finding that and like embracing it at the time and saying like, okay, these are lifelong things you can do, and let's not pretend that it has to be like always, hard. But yeah, definitely as a track coach, I heard this all the time. As a runner myself, I heard it all the time. And even then you're kind of joking like, oh yeah, I can do something you don't want to do. But then you also still kind of internalize it. I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to think about this in 20 years. Yeah.
And does anyone have any last questions they want to give for Allison E before she heads out for today?
I have a question. So, Dr. Reed, some of the key terms that you mentioned so far were obviously exercise psychology, eating disorders, and the youth. So from your experience so far and research, what is one thing that you've learned from these three worlds colliding, I guess, if that makes sense?
I think that we just need to be more intentional with how we talk to kids about the like world they're growing up in, because there's so many messages they're getting from so many people, especially with social media or things like that. So eating disorders in particular in kids, those things develop at really young ages. And by the time we sort of realize it's a problem, it's kind of too late. So I think we can just be a lot more proactive, whether it's, focusing more on like internal body states, like how does your body feel, not how does your body look like. What's more important is how you feel, not how other people see you. I think that also can transcend into a lot of things, but really working with kids and getting that message in then, because yeah, when you're 18, it's already embedded.
And then there's also a question on another chat. It says, what psychological measures do you use in psychological research? As an exercise psychologist, I'm trying to wrap my head around research and data in sports psychology.
Yeah, so often what we'll do is we'll look at how do we use psychological skills, but we'd measure physiological outcomes. So if I'm doing like a psychological intervention, I might want to look at like either changes in fitness, so things like a VO2 max test. If I'm looking at like, how do I improve effort, like in one workout, heart rate, for sure. I'm going to look at, but also we do things like RPE, ratings of perceived exertion. That's not a physiological measure, but sort of over time, we look at a lot of the same kind of fitness outcomes that you all do. Like, it's just that we're looking at the psychological side, not necessarily the effectiveness of the fitness program, but like, how do we get people to adhere? What are, can I foster sort of social environments that make people keep coming so they get these outcomes? So yeah, we'll look at, measures of strength. It depends on the equipment we have, but definitely VO2 max testing, bod pot. Like I've been in a lot of, looking at changes in fat-free mass and fat mass and things like that too. Like in the study we're doing with mHealth that I'm working on with Ayla and Jackie Dawson, we're going to be looking at blood markers too. It's just that my side is the psychological side and their side is the programming side, and we just collaborate together and we have we're looking at the same outcomes. But what I do is look at, how do I get people to do it, not what is the program.
So I have a question as well. This is kind of like for us as an organization. So I know you mentioned earlier that you're doing some research around like COVID and finding ways to find people, to get people to stay connected in like exercise programs and stuff along that nature. So being that we are still dealing with the ramifications of COVID and we are at limited capacity right now with being back on campus, as an organization, we have to find this balance of providing opportunities as exercise as medicine with activities on campus versus its virtual environment. So do you have any advice based off of, the data that you collected so far that kind of could give us insight on how to effectively promote that balance of like connectedness still, even in this virtual environment and it's like limited return stage that we're in?
Yeah, I think it's hard because, can we get people together? Ideally, we'd want, working out together with somebody is absolutely one of the best things you can do for a variety of reasons. But how do we sort of foster that when people can't be together is really hard. So I'm a big proponent of like giving people a group goal to work towards together where everybody needs to contribute. So whether it's things like, okay, let's set a goal for the next 2 weeks where we want to hit as a group, like, 300 minutes of exercise. And so we're going to log our exercise, but it's a group goal. So it's like, it's not just me doing it, but if maybe I'm having a bad day, somebody else, it's like, well, okay, I need to fill in because we're working towards this specific group goal. And then having, some type of reward for that. But like, I think that dependency is also important, but also not making it, I'm an advocate to not make it things like based on weight loss that some programs do, but more on like the activities. Maybe the group goals are, we're going to together try 4 new different activities over the next 2 weeks. Or maybe it's something like that, like in changing up those goals over time. But I really like group goals to keep connected or finding ways to like then track that. So whether it's like through Apple Watch or something like that, but having something to work towards that you can also connect to another person, I think is something that I think is helpful.
And then for the last question for the evening comes from Jacqueline on the chat. She said, you briefly mentioned using exercise as medicine when talking about body image and eating disorders. Can you talk more about how you would have those conversations?
Yeah, it's hard. I think that, thinking about exercise as medicine, when we think about what exercise is for, I mean, appearance isn't in that term, that thinking about what exercise can do for your body, not what can it get you in terms of looking better or social status, that, it's more about like what exercise can do for you specifically. And so in terms of body image and eating disorders, like eating disorders is a lot, it's just so complicated. So I focus more on the body image side now. But focusing on capability, like how do we really use like mindfulness? I'm also being on like self-compassion, like you didn't meet your goal today. Okay, I need to learn how to forgive myself and not beat myself up about it and move away from shame. Like, I think that's a big thing is we like to sort of shame ourselves or shame other people or feel shame if we're not exercising enough or we're not looking a certain way, and embracing that exercise. Like my purpose of doing that is to make myself feel better. So then focusing on those feelings and trying to ignore the rest of it, which is easier said than done for sure. But yeah, really reframing on like, how does exercise make you feel? Having people check in with that. But like I said before, it's complicated because sometimes exercise makes us feel bad in the moment, but then focusing on like, okay, how does exercise make me feel good specifically? Yeah.
So this will conclude today's meeting, and I just want to thank everyone for coming to today's meeting, and we'll see you all next week. And a special shout out to Dr. Eid for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really nice meeting you all. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eve.
Thank you, Dr.